Let's talk mental health. I think everyone has dealt with some sort of anxiety to an extent at some point in their lives. I think it's a very universal thing, it's a very natural thing, where it can tell us when a situation becomes way too uncomfortable for us. So for example, you are in a party and you're feeling super tense and anxious. That somehow is telling you that you're not in a space where your body feels comfortable, or your mind. Anxiety becomes an issue when it peaks. When it becomes way too much, it becomes way too big to handle. And it affects the things that you would do usually throughout your day, like cooking for yourself, getting out of bed, writing down notes, or working, getting out of the house. The moment anxiety affects things like that is when you had to rethink. I remember the first time I ever felt anxious. I don't know how old I was. I must have been like 9 years old. And I just remember this because my sister brought it up on WhatsApp. She sent me this photo. I'm just gonna put my face of horror just so you see that I was truly anxious. So let me put you in context. We were in a beach, but it wasn't a normal beach. It was a nudist beach. My parents decided that it was a good idea to get an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a baby to a nudist beach surrounded by old men with their things wiggling like this. Okay, yeah. So they decided it was a great idea to do that. And not only that, but also sort of force us to get naked. It sounds super disturbing now, okay? I know how it sounds like. My parents are not bad people. Whatever they wanted to do, whatever they were planning, it wasn't a good idea. I remember it was cold and windy as well, so it wasn't helping. And I had this toy with me that I was playing with, and it was the only thing that was making me feel safe. And because of the wind, it blew off and I never saw it again. It got to the point where I just kept on crying and I was like, I need to leave this space. My mom was like, no, we're staying, because definitely that is the best way to go with it. It was also quite terrifying to see my parents naked as well. It isn't really something that I ever wanted to witness, and it was mildly gross. Back then, I didn't know what the term anxiety meant. It makes sense. You're a child, you just feel some tension and you're like, I'm not feeling good. We left, and I remember very specifically thinking, this has been the worst experience of my life. And to be honest, for an 8-year-old, it's pretty fucking strong. An 8-year-old shouldn't go through that, okay? I know I've said it plenty of times, but what the I just remember this tension around my chest and spiraling. I just remember spirals. I'm talking about spirals. Let's make some cinnamon rolls. It seems like no fucks were given about continuity, so I'm very sorry about that. It's been 2 days. So I want to make sure that the weight is taken off this. I really don't want to make this video really depressing and heavy. So let's make some food while we talk about it. Why cinnamon rolls? Well, I've never done cinnamon rolls and I'm really feeling some. So let's get into it. I've looked for a recipe and I've got this one that seems to take 2 hours and 40 minutes. So not only you need a bit of skill, you also need a bit of patience. I was thinking of making this recipe vegan, but from what I've seen, it seems to be more complicated to make something vegan, and right now it's all about not giving many fucks about it. I'm just gonna make it with normal milk, even though it wouldn't be my first choice. The ingredients are milk, active yeast, granulated sugar, apparently 1 egg plus 1 egg yolk, butter, bread flour, salt, cinnamon, and I'm not gonna do the cream cheese filling because I'm not that dirty. So let's go for it. So first step, warm milk to around 110 degrees Fahrenheit, which I don't fucking know how much it is because I'm European. She likes to do it by placing milk in a microwave safe bowl and microwaving for 40 to 45 seconds. Because I don't want to mess this up too much, I'm gonna do the same. It should be like warm bath water. We don't want it too hot to the point that you burn yourself. 3/4 cup. I don't know how much a cup is. So let's pretend that a cup is this much. Matt, in American, when they say 3/4 of a cup, do you think this is a cup?
I never know. Am I getting some when you're making them? I'm hungry.
They'll be done in 2 hours.
She's cooking for me. She's cooking for me. It's like Christmas. It's the first time in 10 years.
So while this fella is doing some coffee, we're gonna get the milk in a cup. So we've warmed up the milk. I don't have an electric mixer, so I'm just gonna mix it myself. And it's asking me to put the yeast, which I don't have because I have not been able to find it in the supermarket. So I've got on baking powder. Definitely looking super sexy so far. Add in sugar, egg yolk, and melted butter. So we need to melt the butter. So basically we're making dough, which I've never done. How much butter do we need to melt? Let's just wing it, however much I feel. I'm gonna melt this much. Okay, that's definitely not 1/4 of a cup. Let's do it again. That sounds dangerous. So sugar, how much sugar do I have to put in? Tell me something I don't know. We have dark soft brown sugar, so my guess is that it will work just as fine. Hopefully. And that's done. I quit. I don't want to burn myself. I once burned myself so bad with microwave soup that I provoked 3rd-degree burn in my hand that I didn't go to the doctor for like 3 weeks up until like it got very bad. It was a protuberance. It was my son. I think that's good enough. It looks like beer. Next thing, sugar. Maybe this much. 1 egg. Ma, what's the egg yolk? Is the yolk the white bit?
No. Yolk's the yellow bit.
How do I separate it? Okay, that should be fine, right? Now it tells me to mix, and that's what we're gonna do. I don't think this bowl is big enough. Let's just put all of this mess into the pan. Okay, nice. So now I can stir more confidently. So while I'm doing this, I'm just gonna bring in the first point that I wanted to make. And is that I had my first anxiety attack. As far as I remember, my first one was when I was 15. Don't know why it happened. I was super overwhelmed. Before going to the United States, which I was in for a year, I had to study like crazy. Otherwise, they wouldn't let me into the agency. And I started to have crippling anxiety to the point that I was losing hair. I had this patch of baldness. And I remember my family looking at it like it wasn't really a bad thing. It was a thing of sacrifice. Like I was sacrificing myself and it was good. So I saw it that way. I just thought that going bald from being so stressed was a normal thing. And then I spent my entire year in the US. I was super lonely. And when I came back, things stopped making sense to me. Within Madrid, within my city, everything really affected me. And it got to the point where a panic attack happened. And again, I feel like I talk about my parents like they're super negligent. I'm not really saying that. I think they just like lacked a lot of understanding for my emotions. The moment my mom saw me having a panic attack, I remember her reaction being, "You're crying like someone has died." And I couldn't really tell her what was happening because nothing was actively happening in my life. But I was so... Wow, that's like an earthquake. That's ridiculous. I had a panic attack for around 3 hours. I thought I was having a heart attack. I think I'm just gonna stop talking until that noise from hell stops, because while that's happening, let's go into putting the flour and the salt and creating the dough. So far, it looks like this. Look how it's looking so far.
What's that?
And now I had to put the flour.
Fucking answer. What is it?
Let's just stir the flour in. Let's keep talking now that that machine from hell has stopped. That was my first panic attack. From there, I remember begging for a psychologist. My parents were like, one day, as a teenager, it is what it is. You have to deal with it. You're just anxious for stupid things, and when you're an adult, you'll understand how stupid it is. Really, I just created this mechanism around my anxiety, and I didn't really let it show in front of anyone. So no one actually understood or knew even that I had such crippling anxiety. So I spent most of my teenage years suffering it and not really understanding where it came from. Also wondering, how could I hold in so much and still be okay? Well, that became a whole new issue when I grew up. Look, this is looking sexy. My anxiety didn't really affect my social life back then, but it did affect a lot more things. I became super insecure about the way I looked. I just constantly felt like I was the ugly one, the one that no one cared about. The door is mostly done. It is like pretty hard, strong door. I need some muscles that I honestly don't have. So that was my mechanism from like the age of 15 to the age of 18. But then I left home and I came here to the UK. And because I was constantly in a survival mode, because I was not in a place I was comfortable in, my mechanism became the one of running away. If things stressed me out, I would just completely decide to change my life. Okay? I think the dough is done. So I had to apparently be here for 8 minutes mixing it up with my hands. I feel like an 8-year-old. Oh my god. I used to go to farms when I was a kid and we would make bread. And we would be with cows and pigs and chickens. And now I'm disrespecting the chicken by taking a fucking egg and making this shit. So let's continue the story. By the age of 18, I still didn't have a psychologist. I've been dealing all of this by myself. So after quitting my first university due to to 101 reasons, I ended up in Bristol. Bristol was both good and awful. It got to the point where I was having panic attacks every day. And that's exhausting, man, because I was studying and working at the same time. People would tell me to get help. I would refuse. I wouldn't have money. My parents didn't really listen to me then, up until it got very bad. And that is when my mum noticed that I actually needed a psychologist all the time. And she got me one. And honestly, that woman has been a lifesaver. And actually, talking about this, I want to mention the whole thing about coaching versus psychologists and how there's this huge ramp of people talking about emotional intelligence like they know, like they've studied it. I think that after all of these courses that last 2, 3, 4 months are quick fixes. I've been with my psychologist for almost 2 years now and I'm still not done. It was something very gradual and I'm still fighting with it. It is a lot more worth it for your growth to be slow and steady. I am done with this dough. Transfer dough ball to a well-oiled bowl. Cover with plastic wrap and a warm towel. Allow dough to rise for 1 hour. Ma, can you help me?
Away from me, you skanky bitch.
So I'm oiling this up. And I'm gonna transfer the dough. Look, Matt, I did a good job. So I've just put a bag around it because I don't have plastic wraps. I don't know how to warm up a towel, so should I just put it in the heating?
I think some would call me stupid, but I think I would call myself a genius. We'll see you in an hour.
And we're back. It smells awful. I don't know if it's part of the process or I'm just doing a bad job. So I'm gonna use this and I'm just gonna put the flour in and I think that should be enough. Okay, so let's just put it in the tray. I don't think I have a roll, I just realized. Let's just try and find something to help us with this.
We both thought she went here.
I'll make sure everyone listens. Yes, too big. It's just too sticky. Is this supposed to be this sticky? So what it's asking me is to put sugar and the cinnamon on top and then roll it. But this is too sticky to roll. I think it's telling me to start from... Honestly, I don't know. Let's just roll it up. I don't know who said that this was going to be easy, but this dough is not helping. This is what anxiety feels like. That is the result. It's not great. If it cooks, I bet it will taste alright. It's not nice to feel like a failure constantly. What? It's asking me to let it rise again. How the fuck is this gonna rise? I find this whole thing very funny and stupid because this is actually giving me a lot of anxiety. You know what? I'm just gonna cook it. I'm just gonna cook it. I know it's against the rules, but I don't care about the rules. I care about not suffering anymore. I'm already the disappointment of my family and my friends, so it might as well be that I'm the disappointment to this poor cinnamon roll. So it tells me to preheat the oven, and while this is preheating, let's keep talking. Even a year and a half ago, when I was really trying to keep it together, some big shit happened in my life, and my first choice was to run away. So I just lived in North America for 6 months or so. Did it help? Maybe to an extent, listening to myself and actually respecting what I want at that moment has been something very positive for my growth. So if I now think my life without that decision of going somewhere completely different, I think I would feel differently about myself, and that is something I don't take for granted. Of course, nowadays I still struggle with a lot of anxiety, but I know how to keep it together a bit more successfully than I used to. So what are the ways to make me feel better? Of course, this is not going to fit to everyone. These are just very specific things that I do. Something very stupid. I make hummus. I make things in the kitchen because I'm a good woman. Making things towards productivity has always made me feel so much better. It sort of helps me to forget that I'm anxious. So I'm just sort of focusing on making hummus. Or I try to be extremely kind to myself as well. There's a tendency when you're anxious to be super awful to yourself. I make little drawings so that I don't judge myself too much. If it looks bad, it looks bad. Just keep going. It's funny because a lot of people will tell you to like talk to people that you love and stuff like that. Personally, it doesn't really work for me. When I'm anxious, I need time for myself. I can't deal with talking to friends. Another thing is, I do my makeup. Sounds very stupid, but when you do your makeup, you're focusing on something very specific. I am not really thinking about the rest of the world, and it's something that's very enjoyable. I just put a bit of music and I feel more put together. Up until very recently, I remember being so anxious about social media. What will people think about my photos? Will they think I look stupid in there? Will they criticize that I blow too much or too little? And I realized that it's always a circle. There's always going to be someone criticizing what you do. There's always going to be someone having issues with something. I've realized that in regards to social media, for example, Twitter doesn't do well to me. Everyone is there to be super negative, to criticize everything. So even though from time to time I go back to Twitter, I do less so these days. I'm conscious that I'm going to get some criticism at some point, but people being malicious for the sake of being malicious, I don't dig it really. There's time and space for everything, but there's definitely no space in my life for shit like that. So just as everything, when I feel anxious about something like that, I just don't let it in. I'm conscious that I have friends that love me and understand where I come from, and there's people that don't know me that will also understand where I come from, and I expect some other people to not understand it, and that's okay. And I feel like in the past I've been so anxious because I've been always expecting things to go so well. Everything had to go so in sync, so perfectly, and the moment it didn't, it just made me feel so anxious. But now what I do is that I just expect things to go as they have to, and something goes slightly bad, I don't take it so personally. I just understand that it's part of the process and it will be better next time. And I'm gonna stop talking and put this in the oven. So that has to be in for 20 minutes.
So according to this, it has around 5 minutes left. So let's check. Oh no, can you see that? It's true, this is on Gordon Ramsay level. Like, look at that cinema roll.
That's pretty good.
That's good?
Yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Victory.
Right.
I won. Okay, it doesn't matter, let's eat it.
Okay, let's put it for 5 minutes, then eat it.
Okay.
It is stuck to the tray as well. Don't laugh at my creation. This is where 2 hours of my life have gone. Okay, so it resembles a roll-ish. Where's your berry day?
How's your mental health today?
I don't know, but my belly hurts and I'm on my period.
Why are you eating this?
Well, I made it.
I think in terms of presentation, it's a solid 3 out of 10. Taste is a good 7, 8. I mean, thank you very much. It's just a treat.
What else do you do with your Saturday apart from making cinnamon roll?
You can't call it a cinnamon roll. You can call it a cinnamon lump. Come on. It's a good cinnamon lump. It's like the best cinnamon lump I've ever had.
So far I've only made videos with food and I'm just wondering why. I don't consider this a failure. This is a step towards something better.